probably 25, it's probably 25% or more of African American males have a Caucasian male's Y gene, and I guess you don't have to have a degree in science to figure that one out. So I realized that at that time, that was probably the only way I was going to find out who or where my link was to this African American woman who John Lawson Burkhalter, I don't care how you put it, raped and created my great grandfather. You know, some folks would say it was consensual or whatever. She was still a slave, so she didn't have any choice in the matter. And that led to just a lot of research that became more and more complex as I went along. But luckily, having a guy who had a PhD in genetics helped me out with that. So I just added those that information just as a genetic part of my travels. How many are online today who are actually from here in the U.S.?
I'm
Anyone?
from the U.S.
I'm from the U.S.
Am I the only one?
Yeah.
No.
And Boris, where are you from, Boris? What's your ancestry?
So I am from Cameroon. I was born in Cameroon, even though I live in Switzerland and France.
Okay. And the other lady that spoke up, oh no, Bill Nix. Is that you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, now where are you from, Bill?
I'm from born Atlanta, Georgia. My father was born Jackson, Georgia. His father was born Barnwell, South Carolina.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm sitting right here in Stockbridge, just south of the Atlanta airport.
Oh, I know where you are.
Yeah. And who was the lady?
I'm Pam. I'm born in the Bay Area, but my mom was from Arkansas. My dad was from Louisiana. My mom's mom, Arkansas, but my mom's mom all were from South Carolina. My grandfather was born in South Carolina. It's funny because my dad was born on the Panola plantation in Louisiana. My grandfather was born on a plantation in South Carolina. So my roots go all the way from there. I have some from Tennessee.
Okay. So it's not surprising to hear South Carolina, for those of you who are not here in this country. Certainly, that was probably the largest, Charleston, one of the largest slave ports, and they're about to open a museum that's been in the planning for quite a few years now. It's just about ready to open. So those of you who are from South Carolina, there's maybe some interest there. Plus South Carolina Genealogical Society have a great conference every year in the state capitol. Really fantastic.
In South Carolina, when is that?
I think it's the second. I'm waiting for the information. I'll be sure I'll get it to you. I believe it's the weekend after July the 4th. It's usually at that time. Quite a few of us from here usually go up, but I'm not sure I'm going to be making it. As I said before, it seems like most likely I'm going to be in radiation treatment for cancer, and that's 5 days a week for about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. So
yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about your battle. You know, you have my prayers with your battle. My brother went through the same thing twice, and I'm telling you, he drank a lot of soursop leaf tea, and it kills cancer cells. But I pray for you. I really do.
Yeah, I'm on my third bout, so I'm gonna fight this one off too. So that's a good program that's going on.
Let me just ask you a question. Are you connected at all with the Georgia Genealogical Society?
I am part of the Georgia Genealogical Society. I'm part of the Afro-American Historical Genealogical Society, Afro-American chapter here in Atlanta.
Okay. My sister is president of the Georgia Genealogical, Madeline Nix.
Oh gosh, yes. So that's the mix. Okay. You know,
That's the
Madeline,
mix.
Madeline and I both had stories in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Yes, I got the story of mine. Yeah, okay.
Sunday, April the 3rd, I believe it was.
Right. I got the article.
Yeah.
And I sent her,
Okay, so
sent her
you two, how do we join something like that? How does one get in? And can anybody be members, Bill?
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that you're in the Bay Area.
Yes, the Bay Area.
You know, if there is not a chapter of Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society in the Bay Area, and I'm sure there is, Google African American Historical Societies in that area, and they're going to pop up.
Okay.
And I encourage you, please join. It's a great resource. You're probably going to meet people who are researching in the same areas that you are. It's just a good resource, and along with that, join. It's very inexpensive. I always join the little historical or genealogical societies in the little counties or towns where my ancestors came from.
Right.
Because I found certainly that there's a lot of stuff that's not online. It's not in the Georgia or South Carolina archives, unless those families who were enslavers donated that information to them. So
yeah,
oftentimes you're going to find folks there, and I don't mean just like GGS, Georgia Genealogical Society. It's not an African American or Black society, but there are a lot of people there with a lot of knowledge, can provide you with a lot of tools and a lot of direction in research.
Can I add to that
Sure.
too, on my own experience, and I think you're saying the same thing. My wife and I ended up a long time ago when we had the roots thing. But anyway, we went to Barnwell, which is where my father, to their little museum and did some research with county records.
Yeah.
And that's where I was able to see what plantation and actually get the names of the slaves that were held in the next plantation. So what he suggested is if you had people who came out of South Carolina, join South Carolina too, or more specifically, if you had it, because that's where a lot of that information is.
Yeah. And I did a presentation a few years ago on a thing in Crawford County where my folks are from. Was not my family, but just got interested and like to do research at the time. It happened that fortunately that there were some people in that organization, the little Crawford County Genealogical Historical Society, who were dumpster divers, because Georgia only required that certain documents be sent to the state. It wasn't until 1919 that they required birth certificates be forwarded to the state. And so a lot of documents and information, those courthouses got so full, they could pretty much throw it away. I was able to find William Ziegler's estate records, and I think I have about maybe 1,000 pages or so. Going back to 1830, the man had a couple of hundred slaves. All the inventories, names of all the slaves were on there. Unfortunately, none of them were from my family to be able to research. But yeah, really, really important to look at those records, especially. I found that most of those little places are pretty friendly. Bill, what'd you think?
Yeah, they were very helpful. They didn't quite have the excitement that I did when I found what I was finding, but they led me on a place to actually go see where my family might have been, a church, and I found the cemetery where my people were buried. So they were very helpful in directing, and just talking to the people in the city, in the little town was really interesting. I just asked, y'all know any Nixes? And they got a lot of stories. Oh yeah, I remember them. So it was great. It is great,
And so you have one of those names that you can say, and they'll know right away, Nix.
Right.
Well, I have some family members with some names. They don't hear it the same way I say it. And finally, they said, "Oh, you mean yes?
Yeah.
Okay." It's like my grandfather's name was Napoleon, and so when I was asking about people that knew him, and I said Napoleon Childers, even the black folks looked at each other like, "You know any Napoleon Childers?" And finally, little old white fella in his probably 80s or 90s sitting in the corner said, "Oh, he must be talking about Paul Chillers."
Right.
And I didn't know, Paul Chillers. That was the first time that one hit me. So a lot of the little colloquial stuff. So, and I'm not the greatest on names because unless I see your name here, and I don't. What was the young lady's name again? Pam, was it?
Yes, it was Pam, and I posted
Pam,
the link in the chat for everybody too. Yes.
Okay. So how much have you done so far? Where are you now in terms
Where
of?
am I now?
Yeah.
This is how I started. I went. I got all my mom's side. I knew from where I did what I knew, and I started from me, my mom, and I went all the way down to almost the beginning of the 1700s. So I got a lot of information. I started going so far back to where now I'm hitting white folks. So I know that I went back far. But with my father, it's difficult because my father, I don't know a lot about his side. I know my father's mom supposedly died giving birth to him, but everything happened at the Panola plantation. So I reached out to the Panola plantation, and I ended up talking to the owners. Her husband was the plantation owner, his family. So she said she didn't have records, and I'm trying to find the records of the plantation now.
Oh, okay.
That's difficult.
Yeah, especially if and you being so far out there, you have many. A lot of times, people will give you what they think they know or what they have, but if you're not able to actually go there in person and explore, you wind up. Now, have you ever gotten any help from any professional genealogists or anything?
No, there was one that was in a genealogy society at the university in Louisiana. He tracked my dad down. We were trying to find a birth certificate. And so we did get a birth certificate, but on my dad's birth certificate, a lot of stuff they blocked out because they said that by law, they're not allowed to give that information. So when it comes to my dad's information on the actual birth certificate, I actually had to wait until this year's over because it'll be 100 years. Then I can call the records department and actually get a copy of whatever they don't want me to have. The lady said she would personally give me that information. She said she's not supposed to, but if I call her, she'll give me that, but it's not in their office yet. Yeah. But it's difficult, and I have to deal with New Orleans. New Orleans are the most rudest people ever. Disrespectful, just definitely rude to get the paperwork. And so I'm having a difficult time with that. So I guess I need to link up with the societies to track down my dad's side. But I got a lot on my mom's side.
Yeah, and hook up with that society in New Orleans, because typically there's some pretty good records over there. Some of our folks do, in our group, do research from Louisiana. Yeah, I was gonna. How many of you know about how many professional Black genealogists there really are. I mean, those that are certified.
I don't know any.
Well, there are only 5 Black genealogists in the world. I'm acquainted with 2 of them, LaBrenda Garrett Nelson and Elise Hill. As a matter of fact, Elise Hill lives right here in Atlanta. So there aren't that many. It's quite a rigorous process to go through. What about death certificates?
What do you have to go through to be a certified genealogist? I've been looking into that too. I had one individual that claimed to know it all that I feel that don't really know nothing but their mouth. So I'm trying to figure out, how does one go through with getting certified for something like that in a professional way?
You can Google that, and they'll send you information. But I can tell you right now, it is a really rigorous process. You're going to have to actually take a specific case and follow it almost to eternity to satisfy their requirements. There's going to be, I think, the writing of almost a dissertation close to it. But it's a really, really rigorous process. And most of the time, you're not doing it on your own family because you right now you're stuck in a place that you're probably not going to be able to cover. I decided not to do it. I didn't want to go through all that. All I had the Ziegler estate records, 1,000 pages, so right in my hand, but that was really not my cup of tea. So we just joined by Ms. Hall. Is it Hall? Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. And where are you?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, Chicago. I'm just now trying to help a young man. I'm waiting for him to call me one day to talk about his Y-DNA test. Unfortunately, he's concerned that if he reaches out, he's going to find some bigoted Southern white man who don't want to talk to him. And my job is to convince him, well, if you don't reach out, you're never going to find it. You know. So I'm still waiting for him to give me a call, and another one of our friends is going to talk to him too, who did Y-DNA, and I'm just putting my Y-DNA story up there. You can hit a couple of those slides if you want,
okay,
and we can talk about that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you were asking about my dad. I have my dad's death certificate, of course, but anything beyond my dad's, his mom and so forth, I found some Native American records. I sent something to the Social Security office asking for the original application of my grandmother, because it stated that she had a Social Security card. So I asked for the original application. It's been 2, maybe 3 months, and I haven't gotten anything back. So I got a phone number. They never answered. So I'm going to have to write them another letter and ask them, where is it for my grandmother and my grandfather on my father's side? And I also did it from my mother's side, so I can keep going back.
What are you looking for now?
I'm looking for the original Social Security application that tells the whole story about who their mother is. It'll, if they filled it out, it should have their proper information and who their mom was and so forth and so on. At least I can have that to find something about my father's mother. So
you have not found him on the Social Security death index?
Yeah, I found my dad, but I can't find his mother's information. His mother or his father. Beyond them, I'm stuck.
His parents were probably born around when and where?
They were born in 1921, and she was born, I'm not really sure where she was born. I think it was Louisiana. I found Native American records for her mother and for her, but I can't find any other records.
Okay, tell me what Native American records did you find?
I found the application where the mom said that my dad's mom they asked if she was asked her a bunch of questions, and they asked her what is she, and she said she was a Creek. And so she said, okay, the father was Seminole. And they says, well, do you want to enroll this child as a Creek? And she said, yeah. They asked what her birthday was. The father was unsure of the birthday, and the mother gave a birthday that she thought it might be.
Yeah.
So
Two
I
questions.
have that. Mm-hmm.
Question. You don't know where she was born actually, but you said it was Creek.
Yes.
Okay.
I actually have the name. I don't have it in front of me. It's sort of M, I believe. I forget. It's whatever it was Creektown. And I have all that information, and it has that. But beyond that application, that I have
and the other
allotment application also, and that's probably it.
And the other said Seminole.
Yeah, the other said Seminole. The father was Seminole.
Where was he from?
I don't know.
It had to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like either Alabama, Florida, or Georgia.
That's the Creek part you're talking, right?
The Creek part and the Seminole. Seminoles came out of Creek, and in fact, they tell me Seminole means runaway, but they established themselves in the Florida North Peninsula, and then came down all the way, almost down to, well, I know they're down to where I am in South Florida. So there's a great history about the Seminoles and the Blacks.
Yeah, right.
Black Seminoles and Seminoles down here.
Yeah, right. As a matter of fact, Florida State still allows them to use that that moniker of Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah.
So have you looked at the 1906 Dawes Rolls, DAWS?
Yes.
You have?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Have you not found anything on the Dawes? Now that was the last Native American census.
Right. I found some of their stuff on the Dawes Roll. Yeah, I found that. But I mean, after them and after the beginning of the application, they don't give you much information.
Yeah. Have you checked with the folks out in Oklahoma, the Muskogee Creeks?
There was a lady that was helping me. I checked with a different one. She was helping me, and she actually said she gave me an application to apply for the Eastern Band of the Cherokee.
Yeah.
And so she gave me that based on my mom's side, but not my dad's side. So I didn't fill out anything because I'm not filling out anything until I know what's what, who's who, and have all my stuff together. So she did research for me, and she found all of the information that I couldn't find, but she said there was more, but they don't have those records. I have to go to them to get those records, but you can't get those people to talk to you. It's difficult.
Yeah. Hopefully before this is over, I'm going to look at something I've jotted down here. Angela Raji, that's her last name. She's a African-American, and she is probably one of the best renowned researchers on Native American and African Americans in the country.
What's her name? Angela what?
Angela Walton Raji, Raji.
Mm-hmm.
And if you Google Black Americans, her name is probably going to pop up. Angela Walton, Raji, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, she's going to be speaking somewhere. So I'll put that on the chat for you if I run across it on my hands. Yeah. Oh wow, we're working out already. So, someone else who's searching and hitting brick walls, and maybe there's a place that they haven't looked yet.
I had a question. Sorry, it's a little loud over here. So I had a question about something that popped up on my in my percentages. Which native, I guess, or indigenous people would have come from the Yucatan Peninsula?
Native Americans.
Or indigenous people.
Yeah. Now there are Afro-Mexicans, but Native Americans that came from the Yucatan Peninsula. I'm not really.
Would that be Mayans?
Anyone else? Huh?
Would those be the Mayans? Is that Mayan area?
I'm not knowing that they migrated this far. Unless it was recent ancestry.
It's probably not. It was only like 1%. I'm just asking because that's the only indigenous that came up for me, and it was from.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be honest. Those kinds of percentages are like flip of the coin. I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but you know, Nix, what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask the question, Avante. You're in Chicago, and was that heritage part of the migration from Mexico to Chicago? And the reason I ask is I have a friend of mine, Jose Suarez, who also lives in Chicago and has Afro-Mexican lineage. So
now, see, my family is not originally from here. My family is from Louisiana.
From where?
From Canada?
No, Louisiana.
Oh, Louisiana. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe it could have come from that area, maybe.
What part of Louisiana?
Abbeville and New Orleans.
Do you know if there were if their enslavers or whatever were planters or you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let me just throw out something, which may be something there, because you said Louisiana. When the Seminoles and Black Seminoles left here and went to Oklahoma, the African Americans stayed there, or the Blacks stayed there for a while, but then went down to Mexico to fight for the Mexican army. And that's actually how they got their name, Buffalo Soldiers. And I'm wondering if, since you're in Louisiana, if there's some connection between them going down into the Mexican area, and then they came back up and became the 9th and 10th Infantry.
I don't know how accurate it is, and it might be very, very distant because it was only 1%.
Right, yeah. right. But that 1% might count for one.
And 1% blood is that blood?
Is it 1 or is it 0.1?
I was told that 1% is definitely that blood. But you know what? I did find out from the administrator of the Cherokee Nation, they can no longer use blood quantum to enroll you in any of the tribes, because by law they can no longer do that.
Yeah.
And primarily, especially of course, the Cherokee fought the battle in court for years to exclude any descendants of freedmen.
Right.
You know, they don't. Let's be honest, they're not looking for us.
Right.
Exactly. They don't even want us in there. You know what else is crazy? I found the land allotment for my grandfather. I found all the documents. I even have my grandmother's original marriage license. I have all of this stuff. And my great grandfather, I found his. And so when I was talking to the administrator at the Cherokee, she says, well, I don't think you want to get that land because it's in the middle of the ocean. I said, well, then that'll be part of the ocean that they can't cross. What do you mean? You know? And so she says, yeah, I do see the documents, and yeah, it is correct. They're trying to get me to enroll, but they want to get me to enroll with the Eastern Band. And I don't even want to enroll in none of the bands, because number one, it took years for them to even say, okay, come on over. You know, I have the documents. You can't deny me now. And now that they're saying you can't have blood quantum is when they want to tell you to come on and enroll.
Yeah. Well, you know, and they know that, you know, they know that in doing the Indian Removal Act, 1830, which is mostly known as the Trail of Tears, they all took the slaves to the nations with them. And at emancipation, those enslaved persons were emancipated and given the same rights as those who were either no blood or full blood Native Americans. And so over the years, they've slowly but surely used their own rights as their own government to push us further and further and further away.
Yes.
Now, talking about Mexico, yeah, you know, there was and my mental state is not the best right now because of what I'm going through, but out in East Texas, parts of the Rio Grande at certain times, I don't know about now, but during slavery, you could basically walk across.
Yes.
And that was pretty much known as the Southern Underground Railroad.
Yes.
Several places in Mexico, usually on the coastlines, one area, Costa Chica, you can find totally Afro-Mexican villages. I have 2 Afro-Mexican cousins. We've not been able to figure out how that is, but they certainly are closer to me than some of my known relatives. I do know that from where my folks are from in Crawford County, they went to Texas to fight at the Alamo, and they took their body servants with them. Now, whether some of those folks escaped or not, I couldn't tell you. But there are all kinds of possibilities of why you would have, I think maybe some Afro-Mexican DNA.
That's very,
you know,
that's
it's
very
funny.
possible.
Yes. When you do your DNA, and I uploaded it, I did more than one, and one of mine was 23andMe. And so I reached out to the ones that were 4th generation, 3rd generation, because I want to know who that ancestor was that connected us, who I thought it was. I didn't see any others until I got into, I'd say 4th generation, 3rd generation, somewhere up in there. And so I inboxed them. I didn't put my picture or anything up because I don't even want them to know what I am.
Right.
Because when they find out what you are, you're Black, they don't even want to reach out back to you. But you got an ancestor that was involved with this African American or African ancestor, and you guys had children. So our DNA is connected. So one got back to me and she said, "Oh, this is not a good way to connect." And I said, "Oh, well, what is a good way?" And she says, "Well, people usually don't reach out to ancestors or reach out to the relatives here." And this is, I'm finding that that's what they say. But you know what? Our people reach back and say, "Yeah, my grandmother is this person, that person," because I found my grandmother's sister's great granddaughter through 23andMe, and through that we've been connecting a lot others on my mom's side. But there's some people that are there that they have no clue about their father. And I don't really know a lot about my father that I'm thinking that are connecting, but our DNA is the same.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you take 23andMe, and a lot of folks, and I was dumb to the fact too, I did not know that I took 23andMe, that I was actually seeing my Y gene, R-L23. I could have saved myself some money rather than going to family tree DNA and doing the Y test. So,
but not for a woman, right? Is that just for a man?
Well, that's for the Y test. They have the mitochondrial test on 23andMe also. If you look at the left side, there's the males. It'll say paternal, and the right side it'll say maternal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I saw that R-L23, I did reach out to one guy. I'm sure he's white. There's R-L23. He's never responded, and I really don't give a damn whether he responds or not. One thing I know is that we both don't have that R-L23 by mistake. That is a Burkhalter gene, north, south, east, and west. So you know, he can sit back and play games like he doesn't know, but that's okay. I have enough contact with the Burkhouses who are doing a yeoman's job of helping with research.
I thought women don't have that gene, that they can't look that gene up, that the male has
Oh,
to
sure.
take that part of the test. So 23andMe does both out of the woman's DNA.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused.
Or you can go to Family Tree DNA and do it.
I did it already through 23andMe. I don't totally understand it. I'm just now learning. I uploaded everything. I uploaded it also in Jet Match. And so I'm looking at the different genes, but I'm not understanding. I was under the impression that I have to go have my brother or male figure in the family take that part of the test. So they don't have to take it. 23andMe, I've already done it through me, is what you're saying?
No. If they took the 23andMe, they're gonna see that the Y gene on the left side says paternal haplogroup.
So I'm still confused. I'm sorry.
You need a male to get the Y gene.
Okay.
Yeah, women, you know, the mother gives an X to both children, but the father gives a Y and an X. So, but that Y gene is strictly strictly males. It goes from father to son to eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you have a brother that you can get to take the Y test, there may be some discovery there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Nix?
I'm learning too. So, but I know just from what you've been saying, but I know in my own search, we're trying to get, I've done it, but on my wife's side, I'm trying to get her brother to take the test.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the reason I did it, but I'm not sure.
Just for information, the African American Historical Museum in Washington, D.C. Is beginning transcriptions of the Freedmen's Bureau records, and they're going to be putting them online as they transcribe them. So you know that maybe the Freedmen's Bureau records are a little bit not too easy to navigate. They're going to be
who's going to do it? I'm sorry, sir.
The African American History Museum in D.C.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody from Alabama? Or had anybody in Alabama? Alabama, Alabama initially established their archives to document only the Confederacy. They finally woke up and they're going to start digitizing and putting online all the information they have on African Americans. Well, that's going to take a long time. I won't be here. Maybe I'm 81 years old. Maybe if some of you younger may be here, or your grandchildren may live to see that. But if you know how long it takes to do that stuff, and to get volunteers, it's going to be quite a task. But at least they finally woke up, and that's something they're doing. Pam, anybody else? Have you explored local newspapers from where your folks were from? If there was a local newspaper.
I tried to do. I only tried to do that in Louisiana, and I even went to some of the churches. I know on my mom's side, the AME was big, a real big thing, and I've been researching and trying to find records because they were deep into that. So that's where I'm trying to go. And cemetery, I talked to one of the coroners in Louisiana, and they said this personal type of thing that they do. I don't know if it's just Louisiana.
Yeah.
But the coroners keep their own records too. So I talked to the coroner's office there, and it all leads back to the Ponola plantation.
Oh, there is there is about a 50. Anybody heard of the Pittsburgh Courier?
Oh yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
got to be around a little while, like Nixon.
Yeah, right.
uh,
Atlanta Daily World.
there was a
Pittsburgh
retired teacher who put together a 15 volumes of Pittsburgh Courier obituaries. Now, the Pittsburgh Courier was a newspaper that mostly we saw in the South, but it was all over the U.S. But she gathered from newspapers and all obituaries as long as the paper was really functioning as a local newspaper. There are 15 volume set. It's called the Pittsburgh Courier. You may want to check with your library, I would say probably a large library, to see if they have those volumes or if they can get those volumes. And you can go through there by city and state and look for obituaries of possible ancestors.
So they put them together by city and state, or is it just for that area in the South? Okay.
No, the Pittsburgh Courier was sold all over the country, New York, Chicago, everywhere else. But it was really, really a paper for Black news and Black folks in the South.
Got it.
Would you agree, Nix?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just, I don't know, I hadn't heard that, so I'm glad to hear that. But there were certain newspapers like that one, like Chicago Tribune.
Oh yeah.
In the South, you had Atlanta Daily World. New York. But that's a beautiful thing if they've taken all of that and put it into a volume. And it could be, when you look it up, that by this time maybe they've digitized some of that.
Yeah, I think there's about 15 volumes, and there's a set here in the Georgia Archives. I'm sure you know Emma Hamilton. Yeah, Emma, of course, and Madeline Road Buddies. Emma donated her set to the Georgia Archives.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Emma's from down here, in fact. Bell
yeah,
Bay,
right.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. Pam, you may want to also explore Louisiana's state archives.
Yeah, I have a lady there that was trying to they're not really assistive, but I had a lady there that was trying to help me, and she gave me a little bit of insight of how to look. The best thing for them, you have to actually go down to Louisiana, because they want you to come in, pull their records out, and look for yourself.
Well, if the information is in the archives, like here in Georgia, we have something called the virtual vault, and a tab called Ask an Archivist. You can actually go into Georgia's virtual vault and just look around, as long as you need to, looking for putting in different sources and names, counties, cities, and trying to find out what you're looking for. And there's also a tab about Ask an Archivist that could help. Would help with the also, and most states have pretty good. Now, the one thing I found about a good buddy of mine wrote a book called Got Proof, and he was from Louisiana. He actually met his French relatives. He went to France, spent time with them in the south of France. The family came here. A lot of those records were held by the Catholic diocese. And he went back as far as the Spaniards were there, I believe, before the French. And so a lot of those records had to be transcribed from French to English and from Spanish to English when he wrote his book. So although Louisiana has some great records, they may have some complex because of the different languages that some of those records were written in. What you're seeing is percentages of most likely what is my heritage. Black and white heritage. And my namesake Burkhalter, PhD geneticist, assisted with that. And you can look and see how I matched with the Burkhalters and also with a family called the Reese. It turns out that John Lawson Burkhalter and his wife, Evelyn Catherine Scott, are both a match to me, are related to me through that process of the Reeses and Burkhalters.
Interesting. You know, there was one, when I did my family tree, I was looking at Ancestry, and Ancestry just had so much that was popping up, but some stuff is good and some stuff is not, you know.
Yeah.
But the ones that were good and that were real, I started looking at other people's family trees to see how are they connected, you know, what's going on in their family. And so when I got all the way down to the late 1800s and the early 1700s, and I started seeing all the white families, I looked on their tree and I started seeing it's France, it's England, it's all the areas like that. And they were saying how this person had, you know, they had prestige family. And I said, I'm going to send these people a message in a minute, and I'm going to ask them some real detailed questions, you know, about the family, because I would like to know how is it that they're connected. I even saw the picture of the grandfather that they were talking about that was married once to my grandmother, or was with my grandmother. I don't know if they call it marriage. I'm sure they didn't, you know. But I'm going to send a message. I don't know if they'll be willing to message back, because they don't like to message you back when they realize, hey, there's Black people in their bloodline.
Well, you know, I hear what you're saying. I haven't had that issue except for once. Have you looked at that site, My Enslaved and Enslaver Ancestors?
No, what? Can you give me that name again?
My Enslaver and Enslaved Ancestors. Google it.
Can you put that in the chat? The website?
I have never heard of that.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not sure exactly how it is on the website, but if you Google My Enslaved and Enslaver Ancestors, it'll go. I am, my middle name is Google. So if you hear me saying that a lot, that's how I get around and find most of the stuff I find.
Okay, brother, is it about the Facebook page, or is it?
Yeah, Facebook.
Okay, so if you guys go on Facebook and then you can just search My Enslaved and Enslaver Ancestor, you're gonna find.
Thank you, Brother Mudd. Yeah,
it's on Facebook.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
There are returns of qualified voters. You've looked at those. Reconstruction oath books. Nix, I know you have.
I've sent an invite because I'm part of the group as well. So I've sent an invite to a few people now. They're going to receive it.
Okay. Have you looked at the Reconstruction oath books, anyone? All the returns of qualified voters. Now, those are going to be about the time we Black men could vote, and then the return of Reconstruction. Those are the books that everyone had to sign loyalty to the government during Reconstruction. Pam, Avante, have you searched through state and county property tax records?
No.
You may have thought that maybe your ancestors didn't have any property, but you search those records, and you just may find that somebody did own some property.
Yeah, I did, and it was it was taken illegally, because they had a land allotment from that they were granted. I guess, I don't know, each person was granted X amount of acres or whatever. And so they were granted land, but however, they lost it from taxes, which they are not even supposed to do. So it was taken from them illegally. So when I called about it, the lady said, oh, the administrator from the Cherokee was telling me, oh, I don't think you'd even want that because it's underwater.
Underwater is better than in the middle of the ocean, because I don't know where Cherokee land is out in the ocean somewhere. How about your World War I draft registration cards?
Yeah, I saw that too. I have a copy of it, but I'm waiting for the original application from the military, stuff like that. I sent out letters and I requested stuff like that. The original application and things like that tells different stories.
What'd you say about Avanti? You were saying something?
I've seen those, the World War I and II records.
Actually, I don't know if they're still here, but at one time, all of the World War I draft registration cards were here at the Southeastern Archives in Atlanta. I was actually able to go and put my hand and hold the card that my grandfather put his X on. Yeah. So those records, I know they were supposed to be returned, but I don't, now that the archives have the feds have cut back so much, you got to keep a calendar and know what dates they're open and what hours they're there. Used to be just free walk in 5-6 days a week, but not anymore. So I wanted the county property tax records, and that's typically after emancipation. You can look at those and typically see who your ancestor was working for. He may have been working for the enslaver or someone else at another plantation on another farm. Those records are always good for that.
Can you say that again? Would you say that again?
The property tax records digest. Every state has them. They will tell you who your ancestor was working for. Yeah, they're good. I was also looked at the criminal records. Of course, I found a few ancestors on that because my folks were heavily into moonshining. So I found a few of them as on the criminal records, and also a few. Yeah, oh yeah, okay. And also some newspaper articles of them, outrunning the sheriff from county to county. I'm sure those Plymouths they were driving had false tanks full of moonshine. I'm sure everyone has used Find the Grave.
Yes, and I found a lot of them that way.
Yeah, that's good. Newspapers.com. It's a paid subscription, but there you can search old newspapers and look for obituaries or marriage announcements, things of that nature. And then they all, anytime a slave was, if there was a slave sale from one slave owner to another, that had to be advertised. I know in Georgia you had the name. You couldn't just say I got 2 Negro boys for sale. You had to give them a name, of course, and the price you were selling them for. So sometimes those newspapers can give you that. The things that you may not find online are the slaveholders and slavers' inventories. And that's why it's important to try to connect with some of those folks, because typically they have those, and oftentimes those records may also be in the county records. You know, you had to count everything from, you know, from a bucket of corn to a 2-year-old enslaved person.
Yes.
So those inventories are really important. That's how I located one of my great-great-grandparents. I believe it was an 1856 inventory. Okay. Freedmen's Bank. Anybody with any relatives who had an account with Freedmen's Bank?
I don't know.
Okay.
How can you check those records?
Google it. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Will you just Google Freedmen records?
Freedmen's Bank. The Freedmen's Bank and the Freedmen's Bureau are two different things now.
It's called Freedmen's Bank?
Yeah, Freedmen's Bank. Freedmen.
And then Freedmen, what's Freedmen Bureau? What's the difference?
Well, the Freedmen Bureau was the government after the Civil War assigned usually union officers as the district administrator for certain areas. And what you'll find on there is if you find a relative, you'll find that their occupation, typically where they lived, whether they were school children or school teachers. But there's a lot of information on those freedmen's records. And like I said, now they're now being transcribed.
Would those records be in the Library of Congress? Because I know when you look up anything,
all of those records in the Library of Congress. All of them.
It's hard to find. Library of Congress is like, it's hard. You have to really spend hours and digging down to get it.
You do. It's this is tedious work. You know, and I won't kid you. I used to. I don't anymore. I'm too damn old to do it now. But I used to wake up at 3 in the morning with something in my head. I kept a pen and a pad beside the bed, and believe it, I'd be dreaming about something, and I'd pop up, get the pad, and write it down because I knew the next morning when I woke up, I wouldn't know what the hell I was dreaming about. So I jot this stuff down.
Eli, I need my charger.
So that I could go find it. Yeah. So you know, when you think of something, you may want to keep a little pad with you and make notes, because I'll guarantee you, you'll forget what it was you were looking for, and then when you think about it, you wonder where did I find that? I need to go back and find that, but you won't know where. And that's the importance of keeping a nice Excel spreadsheet or just a line notebook where you keep notes at. And Brother Monk is putting some of the stuff that I'm talking about Google right there for you to see. freedmensbank.org.
Yeah, I've sent a lot of detail about Freedmen's Bank, so anyone want to find it? That was the first time I actually heard it myself. Thank you very much, Brother Louis.
Yeah.
So, I've got a quick question, Brother Louis, because you said that when you could find from, when the slave was sold, were they allowed to change the name or to keep the name, or was it having a different?
You know,
can trigger the search as well.
Yeah. Here's the thing: when you locate a slave sale at the county newspaper, hopefully try to find who was purchasing that slave.
But sometimes they didn't list the actual names.
I don't know, but in Georgia, if you sold a slave and that sale and that you had that as part of that sale, you couldn't just say I'm selling a Negro man or a Negro woman. I know you see those sales that coming out, the earlier ones. But another thing about this stuff is you kind of have to know where the laws were when the laws were changed in states. We're going to come
Meaning you have to know when the laws were changed. Why are you saying that? I'm not understanding that part.
Well, I'm not saying you don't understand, but there are times maybe when they didn't, but at a certain time the legislature changed the law that said now you have to. For instance, in Virginia, there is a slave birth digest, and in Virginia, you had to report to the state the birth of every slave and that slave's name. And there's a digest there in Virginia. If you happen to be from there, maybe from one of those counties or one of those plantations, you may be able to go and find the person that you're looking for. But you couldn't just have, I'm sure that had to do with counting for tax purposes.
Right.
Virginia wanted to know when every slave was born, whether it was male or female or what his or her name was. So you couldn't just ignore that and then sell a slave and get the profits without the state knowing and being able to tax it. I'm sure it had all to do with taxes. Have you been able to access any estate records of the families that you've been looking for?
No, I haven't even looked in that direction yet.
Okay. Estate records, if you can find them, are very important. A lot of those estate records are probably not going to be online because many of those things were done intra form of plantation, where they kept their own records.
They don't give you the records. How do you get them to give you the records? How do you get around that part? I haven't been successful.
You know what? I know maybe you got some folks who don't like to be bugged. But I go from one person to the other. I found primarily that folks have been okay giving this stuff. It's not doing them any good. I mean, is this something they have and they know? And I will honestly, if it comes to it, I'll say up front, look, I don't need anything from you. I don't want anything from you. I just want to see those records.
Right.
Would you share
That's
them?
what I've been saying with the lady from the canola, because everything leads back to canola. And she says there's fine. They were actually really, really nice about it, but they just don't know who has the records. And from what I understand, each one try to hold on to it because each record is worth a lot of money. To them, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I find that they'll give you copies. They're probably not going to let you actually have see the record itself.
Right.
But I'm not finding difficulty with them with white people sharing with me.
Let me just, I don't know, Lewis, if this was when you said state records, but I can tell you that when we went to Barnwell and to the county records department, one of the things I was looking up is last will and testaments. And we got a list of the last will and testaments. And that's when I got excited because I could see that this lady named Millie Nix was deeding her property, including her slaves and cattle and land, to her son and to her daughter. And she did name each one. So I had the names of the slaves just looking at the last will and testament. And this went back to early 1800s. So I was able to track that. And that was just exciting just to know that And I came back and told my father I got the slave names. And the other thing was in those same records, and of course you have to kind of have to be there, but we were able to see property taxes and property records. And so we saw where those same lands were then deeded and sold to other people. And so, including our relatives. So I think if you ask them about last will and testaments, maybe they didn't have an estate, but this is the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Hey, Bill,
typically,
I seen that part. Can you tell me one thing, that when you looked at the wills and all their documents, it didn't have their names. The ones that I saw only had like the first name, or this black child, 2 years old. I leave
Yes.
to Jamie or something like that, but it didn't have
Yes.
it didn't have the information. How did you get around that?
Well, no, that's what I got, but I was happy to get that because lady said,
yeah.
Okay.
in fact, it was interesting from a historical standpoint. This Millie said, I deed to my son, my slave, and I thought it was really interesting, my slave, and she named her just, Melissa. But this was interesting to me, and her unborn son for perpetuity. I deed to my son, my slave, and her unborn child in perpetuity. And what's interesting with that is she thought slavery was going to last forever. Yeah. And here's an unborn child, and they was given. So that was from a historical standpoint. It was just interesting to think about the mindset of what they were thinking at the 1800s. So you won't find, Alberta Nix, but it's just Alberta or Skizzy or Kizzy or,
Caesar, April, January.
Right.
One thing about Georgia, you had to name that slave. You couldn't just give somebody, I'm giving to my son a Negro boy. A Negro boy named Orange. William Ziegler had over 200 slaves. He kept them all in families. But on his documents, he had the name Ben and his wife Millie and their children Caesar and Ronald and April.
What's Millie's last name? Because I got a Millie. What's Millie's last name?
Millie,
right?
I got two Millies.
That was just the name they gave, Millie.
Yeah.
They didn't have a last name. They were
a last name.
Oh. Because I got two Millies in there.
But they came off of, see, and let me just say this, and my sister and I get into this all the time, because she's a genealogist and I'm the oral historian. But the name was Millie, and she came off the Nix plantation if she chose that name after the Civil War. Okay.
Oh, okay.
See, they chose to say, this is my last name, because they never had last names.
Right.
So when my sister and I get together, it was a matter of, she says, well, how have you documented that? Meaning, where are the records? And I understand that. But what she's really saying is not every Nix off the plantation was the genealogical Nix of our family. You see that? There were a lot of Nixes that came off, but they might not be genealogically in our family. Yeah. And that's part of the Reconstruction. So we came off, we took the name because we had to have a name. But I found out, as an example, that James Brown came off that same plantation. But for some reason, they went the Brown route. And I found out from his daughter. Because when I said, we're from Barnwell, she said, I'm from Barnwell. My dad is from Barnwell. So it's an interesting thing as you dig deeper and deeper. And as Lewis is saying, you gotta go deeper, but it's so rewarding when you do find out.
Yeah. On 23andMe, Ancestry, Family Search, there are tools on those DNA sites that you can use to help you. And where you see those things say help or support, I advise you to click on some of those, because typically there are videos and someone who's there who's giving you help with how to use that certain tool on that site. There are lots of tools out there on those sites. It's not just a site to go and see matches and stuff like that. But where that you see support and help, follow that line, and maybe you will finally find the bullet that you want. Click on it, and you may find a list of things, or oftentimes you may find a short video that will help you on those sites. FamilySearch.org is a free site, except for you can't match. It is a very, very powerful site with lots of tools that you can use. You just have to go to the help button and click on a bullet that you think is something that's going to help you with your search. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Who was that?
Me,
Yeah, who's me?
Avanti.
Oh, hey, I see your hand.
So I'm only able to go back to my great grandparents on both sides. I don't, to my knowledge, I don't think anyone knows anyone's names past that.
Okay, tell me when that was, approximately what dates of your great grandparents? Late 1900s, late 1800s?
It would be like when they were born or when they died?
Oh, when they were born, most likely. Or where?
Early 1900s and Vermilion, Louisiana. Okay.
Now we all know that we all got a big hole in the census.
Mm-hmm.
The 1890 census was destroyed by fire.
Oh, okay.
That was the population census. Now, some states, Florida, Texas, I think Alabama, a few others, they did state census. And you need to look for those. I mean, there was census done in some of those states in off years of 1867, 1884, stuff like that.
Okay.
There was a period in Ohio when so many mulattoes were showing up. Ohio said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Where are we getting all this from?" They did an 1863 census, but it wasn't mandatory. So a lot of counties did not comply because, especially around Ohio River, because they figured they were looking for slaves.
What about Texas?
Texas did some off-year census, yeah.
Okay. I have family coming from Texas too.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, if you find a record where you think your relatives were, but you don't see them, kind of maybe follow the folks who were next to them, who lived next to them, or something like that. Sometimes that can lead you, or sometimes those folks just may be a relative. You know, sometimes on Ancestry, you click on the census, and it'll say others who live on this page. And how many of you use Ancestry, and you go to the right at the bottom of that whole lineup and click on who else is looking for this person?
Mm, I've never seen that.
Say, let's say you put in a person's name, Barnwell County, South Carolina, and the year or whatever, and you click it, and so you get that person that shows up. And then on the right hand side, below all that 1940, 30 tax stuff, on the bottom says, see who else is looking for this person in Barnwell sign, and click on that. Typically, it would bring up all the trees of other folks who are on Ancestry looking for that person. Oh, and then when you click on one of those trees, to the right of that, you'll see something that says View All. You click on that, it'll drop down maybe 5, 6, 8, 10 different trees. Sometimes a tree is by the same person, so you don't spend all that time going through all those trees. But the ones that look familiar, open that tree up and look at it. You may find a relative, or maybe something in the relative that you're looking for. Your Ancestry, that's a really good tool on there.
I have another question. I know that you have a hall in your surname list. Where, because I know there's a lot of halls. So was there like a hall plantation, or do you know where, like?
Now, the halls married into well, only Henry Latimer Hall married Eugenia Lawson Burkhalter. He married into the Burkhalter family.
Okay.
Now, there are some out in Texas, East Texas, around Jasper.
And see,
they're
my
white.
house is from Texas.
These halls are white, and they're out around East Texas, around Jasper. And I found something very interesting when I connected with them. The mother of the person who I connected with adopted the black male child and raised him. He's now a retired Marine and retired Texas State Trooper. I haven't asked the question. And East Texas, oh, you know, that's where they tied James Byrd to a pickup truck and dragged him to his death. So I'll get around to it as, why did you adopt this young black boy? Something's going on, perhaps.
Right.
I don't know what. I'm gonna touch on one thing about estate records. If you look in one county, or you search that county, and maybe an estate has started to be settled in that county, but then another county was created and took a part of that county, what the record was, most likely that record stayed in that county and didn't go to the other county because it wasn't settled yet. Now, Georgia has 159 counties. I mean, yeah. The last county formed in Georgia was Peach County around 1929. I've never seen a place with so many counties. But always be, and there is someone wrote a book in Georgia about all its counties, when they were formed, how they were formed. That gives you a kind of a record of, you know, if I'm looking at Bibb County, I'm going to look at Crawford County, at Peach County, at Monroe County, at Houston County. I'm going to look at all those counties that connect with Bibb, because I don't know where those folks went. They may have gone to those counties, and I'm gonna look at names like, now from doing stuff with my wife, I know that some of her Howells moved from Talbot to Taylor to Upson, another circle, and dropped the name Howell and took the name Howard from Howell to Howard. So always be mindful of those name changes. Are you with me on that? Okay. How many of you knew that there were Black slave owners?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Where were they mostly concentrated? Both of you have been talking about those states. Most of the Black slave owners were in Virginia, South Carolina, and Louisiana. There's an excellent book for South Carolina around Charleston called No Chariot Let Down. And it's a story about William Ellison, born around 1816. His name was really April Ellison. By the time he died around 1861, he owned about, I guess, close to 70 slaves and a big cotton gin, and was probably the wealthiest African American in the state of South Carolina. Of course, Louisiana, because of the sugar and rice, there were several Black slave owners in that state, male and female. I'm thinking Duverchette was one of them. Okay, I found it. Let's see. There is another book, The Black Slave Master, in South Carolina, 1790 to 1860, by Larry Koger, Koger. So something that you just may want to look at. How about African American soldiers, Civil War? Anyone have any soldiers from Civil War? How about free persons of color?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about those. How'd you find those?
It's interesting for me, Bill Nix, because during the Reconstruction, well, actually, Civil War, and around the Augusta, Georgia area, my aunt on my mother's side, her father, she was a white. Her father was Jefferson White, who actually was a pastor at Springfield Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia, where Morehouse College was founded. And he founded the Augusta Baptist Institute in the basement of that church. And he was a free man of color who owned a funeral home, who actually had a contract of building the caskets and all for the Confederate Army during that time. So that's where he made his money. But he also printed some kind of newspaper, newsletter, news something during that same time. But yeah, he was a free man of color during that time. And what's interesting, I didn't know, because I went to Morehouse, and I didn't know that my aunt was even connected with the college until her funeral at the age of 94, reading her obituary.
Yeah.
And that's how I found out there was a connection with William Jefferson White, who was her great grandfather.
I just got a Facebook post on at my enslaved ancestors. Someone posted a name on there, and I said, "Oh, geez, we have that in our family." And my aunt married this man, and I just got this says, "Oh, that's my family. I just learned their culverts here. My father should have known about this. His mother." So you never can tell what's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Wonderful.
I just put that out there. I think this morning when I saw that name, it was about one of the slaves that was in the WPA writers book, and it turns out that he was it was our family member, and obviously this lady is related to the family also. Have you located any church records? Now, we know that on some plantations, slaves went to church. They sat upstairs in the upper pew, but they went to church. Their names are in those church records, not by a Negro Mary or but a Negro woman or a Negro man or a Negro boy, Negro girl. They're in there by name. Something about Georgia is that you couldn't just get away with selling and doing things with slaves without naming them. I'm sure that also had to do something financial. Now, lest I forget, remember some folks own more than one plantation. So if that's true, then maybe you need to follow that slave. If he was on the East Plantation and then got moved over to the South Plantation, and 2 years later to the West Plantation, you can lose them if you don't. Because remember, there were slaveholders who lived in England and France and places like that. They didn't even live here. They just owned plantations around the South. And so those slaves could have been moved from one plantation to the next plantation. And you need to try to follow. If you find that person, you say, well, I couldn't find him after this period, then you maybe need to look at if they've got more than one plantation. I think that's just a little tidbit. Then I made my little list out this morning. Cover that. Legal notices of slaves. I don't think there's any place around the country where you will not find an LDS library, a church. Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Those are excellent places to do research. The people there are typically friendly and knowledgeable. And if you're in the Bay Area, I'm sure they're all over the place. And I would go there, Pam. I'm looking for something, and I'd ask if they can help.
Listening.
Yeah, and I'd ask if they can help.
That's the one with the Mormons, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know that they have tremendous amount of the records. I've never asked them to actually physically help me, but I do know that they have a lot of the records.
Well, that's who've been digitizing all this stuff for 50, 60 years or more. And so they have probably the collection that Ancestry hadn't bought up. So you can just Google the LDS library, a church near me.
Mm-hmm.
Call them to see if they have a reading room.
Is LV or LB?
LD,
like
Latter-day Saints. D for day.
Okay. Day. Okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy how they have so many of our records and we don't even have our own records,
Well, it's not that they have our records. They had the wherewithal and the ability and the money to buy all those records and to digitize them. Let's be thankful they did. Otherwise, we wouldn't be seeing them.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are some, perhaps, you know, a lot of places had courthouses burned to the ground. And sometimes you can see a fire that looks so devastating, you think nothing in that fire got saved. Don't believe your lying eyes. Call that courthouse and ask them if there were records saved from that fire in 1894 or 1919. I think they're like only in Georgia, Twiggs County and one other county were the only two courthouses that lost everything. Not one piece of paper was saved. You know. So that's what happened to that. How many of you know about slave insurance? Well, a lot of enslavers felt that they had a valuable commodity if that slave was an excellent craftsman, you know, carpenter, designer, or whatever, and they insured him. Brother Monk, do you have that? If you put that up, you still have it. It says a slave insurance or something like that. I don't know if you were able to open that or not.
Is that like a regular insurance company or a specific insurance company that just only?
Yeah, no. Penn Mutual and some of the other big ones.
So how are we looking them up? Will we just look up insurance companies and you ask the insurance company?
Google slave insurance.
Wow.
And you're gonna see typically the place and the name of the slave who was insured, and perhaps what his or her trade was. Hmm? We'll be on that. Yeah, there were slave insurances. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Malcolm, you have a copy of that document you can look at?
I'm looking at it now. Is it what you sent me earlier, brother?
Yeah, it says slave insurance, I think.
Okay, let me just have a look at it.
So is it like our insurance? Like when they died, they actually
Yeah, if you got hurt or killed or whatever, the insurance paid off. The insurance paid.
Okay, I've got it. So I'm gonna share it now.
Yeah. You got to remember, we were probably the most valuable property on the plantation, to the point where some of our ancestors were insured. Yeah, I know it's a hard bitter pill to swallow, but yeah, we were.
There we go. I've shared it now.
Yeah. Okay. Can anybody? I don't see it.
Is it in the chat?
Yes, I've shared it on the chat now for everyone.
Okay, on the chat. Okay.
Yeah, on the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't see it on the screen.
I mean, I can bring it up on the screen if you guys want it. So.
Would you like to see it?
Yes.
Let me just do that now, and then brother, we can take us through that. Let me just.
That pisses you off even more to know that, you know, they died and they died with insurance. So when they died, their owners got paid for them dying. That's crazy. How the heck could that happen?
Yeah.
Can I make a statement?
Yeah.
I'm looking at what the link to the book Black Slave Owners, Free Black Slave Masters in South Carolina. Of course, I was interested because of my own heritage, but I also want to throw out in terms of kind of discernment and being careful as we go through this, that we don't miss out on some of the nuances of the author, whoever he is, and I have no idea who he is. And what brought that to mind is because as I read, or as I'm reading a recap of it seems to suggest that the dehumanization of Africans enslaved in America was also done by Black slave owners. And so it sounds like there's an equal. So just as you read,
no, it's not equal.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying to the uneducated, they might read it that way.
Right.
And of course, the last sentence on there says he describes how African American slave masters had earned their freedom, but many others, primarily mulattoes born of free parents, were unfamiliar with slaves' dehumanization. That's not true. Yeah. So let's be careful as we read whatever we go into.
First, oftentimes.
Hey, how before you go any further, how were they able to do that? If they, you know what I mean? Like, what gave them the right to be able to go out and buy slaves, and they're the same race? So how was they able to do that just because they got their freedom papers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was that the point I want to make very quick. Now, Lewis, the point is the system, and they talk about the system of slavery and how the laws allowed certain things to do. But there's a difference in how servants were treated, by different people. That's why a lot of people want to come down to Florida, because how the Spanish interpreted slavery.
Yeah. And you have to know that those Black slave owners, they weren't treated or given the same privileges as white slave owners.
Right.
They still had a as they'll say, a chalk line to walk. Now, William Ellison, he initially, I think, and his story came about by accident. There was a engineer from Minnesota who was in South Carolina with his children to do some work or some studies. They were renting a house that had a large area underneath, crawl space. The kids were crawling around underneath the house and found this large shoebox. They brought the shoebox in to their dad, and lo and behold, this shoebox was full of letters by the Ellisons. From William to his children who lived in Canada, who traveled back and forth between Canada and South Carolina, Christmas greetings, etc., etc. So that, and then of course, searching the historical records to find out the rest of his life, he was born a slave in 1816. That may have never come to light, that those kids never found that shoebox full of letters. But on the screen, you can see fireman's policy to be employed on a steam towboat, common labor, day of death. Now, this guy had a policy on, he was a common laborer. To be employed in the rice field, Edgefield, South Carolina. Just fireman on steamboat. Mm-hmm.
How much was the policy for? What was the payout for these people?
They don't show the amounts. Mm-hmm. They just show you the name of the slave and where they were, what the policy was for, slave owner, and New York Life, American International Group.
American and I'm pissed off at them. American, they have been around for so many years. Wow.
So is New York Life.
Yes, yes.
And then those policies in some cases were sold from one company to another company. Yeah.
So these are places we don't want to go, you guys.
Yeah. So I've been at this stuff so long. I'm beyond the angry point. I use this stuff as learning tools, as teaching tools. Who knows? Someone may look at one of those and find somebody they're looking for. And as you can see, it looks like the slaves are all listed alphabetically. Daniel, David.
First names.
Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
I know. One of the big surprise, Brother Monk. Do you have the slide on the interracial marriage in Liberty County in 1818? Maybe you could just show the title of it.
Yes. I've got it here. Let me just.
They can go to maybe and download it.
Sure. Let me just go.
Lest you think there were no interracial marriages, think again. This is one of the earlier ones that was found in 1818, and of course, my concept has always been: if you were extremely wealthy, male, and white in the South, you could do any damn thing you wanted to. And there are a number of those cases. In my Ziegler case, at the time he manumitted the woman and the children, Georgia law didn't allow for that. But he was so doggone rich, he just flouted the law. Fortunately for them. So in 1856, William Ziegler was getting ill, knew that I guess he was about to hit the end of the road. And he said, like quite a few enslavers who had children by a slave woman, I need to get them out of here if they're ever going to be free. So what he did was he made his will, and on his will, he employed his favorite nephew, his sister's son, to take them to Ohio and free them there in Claremont County. But not only did he do that, he gave each one of the children, Octavia, Melinda, and William Henry, named after him, $30,000 apiece. And Mary, he gave $10,000. Now, we're talking $100,000 in 1856.
Gee.
He died with people owing him over $297,000. I guess because somehow he couldn't have foreseen it. If 1856, he didn't know the Civil War was coming, or that slavery wasn't going to last forever. So he chose local trustees that he knew. Well, that was a mistake. The war came, and of course, Confederate money became obsolete. And some of the trustees were doing funny stuff with the money. So around 1868, Mary and one of the daughters came back. I've got a presentation. I'll send the presentation out. They came back and they sued the trustees, and the court ruled in their favor. They eventually came back here in around 1870. But around 1890, the two daughters I think, went back north and passed for white. They certainly almost got mixed up on the 1860 census in Ohio. So it was well known that they could pass for white. So I know that in all of my research, they simply dropped off the face of the earth. I could never find them. And I probably never am going to find them. I mean, or their descendants. Yeah. So as you can see, now Stacey Ashmore Cole is she's a caretaker for her husband. She never leaves the house. All she does is research and post. And this is an account that she found in Liberty County, Georgia. She's in Liberty County. And if brother puts that in the chat, you can download it. It's a long read with a lot of documents, but an interesting story. Yeah.
Where's Liberty? Where's Liberty County?
Oh, I believe south of here. Yeah, I'm not. It's.
I'll look it up. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah, look it up right quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything south of Atlanta.
Oh, I don't know. My folks came from my maternal folks came from Bartow County.
Oh, okay.
Well, it looks like it's over around Savannah.
Okay.
In that area, huh?
Yeah. Bartow.
Yeah, my folks came out of Bartow, my mother's folks. Mm-hmm. So you guys see that 1818 and interracial 1818 marriage in Liberty County, Georgia? It's an odd thing to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, who would have thunk it? Yeah. Well, you guys, anybody with some other stuff to just talk about or share or questions to ask that we can all jump in and you know, chat a little bit about. We're finishing up our second hour.
The only thing I would say is, and basically, thank you very much, Lois, for doing this and leading us through it, but not up. And as I've gone through my research, I've noticed that everybody's not going to be happy that I'm looking into it, or everybody's not going to be happy that I've found some things. And I had experience when I went through Barnwell and then ended up going to Charleston and saw a young lady at the visitor center who had the last name of Nix, a white young lady. I was so excited to see that she had Nix. And I asked her, where are your people from? She said, Barnwell. And I good thing I refrained from saying, sister, but I was so excited. And I said, really? And she said, yeah. I said, well, what were they into? And she said, we were into lumber and turpentine. It was new information. And I said, wow. So now I know what my people were doing and why Millie Nix was selling 100 acres of property and timber. And
turpentine was big up there. Yeah.
I found that out. Yeah. So I'm saying, wow, I'd like to, get more information. Of course, she egged me, but I realized everybody's not going to be as happy. So just go there, get your information, get what you need to get, and thank everybody for sharing whatever they can share. But it's part of our life and our history and our heritage. So it's all good information.
Yeah, and I think it just gave us a key. One of the things is try to know what was going on in that area. What kind of agriculture or work that was being done, a plantation or whatever. sometimes that gives you a clue of where to look for. Even coming out of slavery into the 1870s, maybe some of those old companies were still doing work and may still have some worker roles around or something. I know I looked for some of my folks in the chalk mines up in North Georgia. Didn't find anything, but so far I haven't found any that I had some people who did not respond, but I've never had anybody who's been totally rebuffed. And one guy who I thought I was talking to the person who was the match, but it turns out he finally fessed up that, well, actually 2 times, that it was the white wife who I was related to. Now, Vincent Trinka, his wife, Susan Tripp, was fine. Henry Latimer Hall, I haven't heard from Eugenia Burkhalter's granddaughter, but that's okay. I'm savvy enough to work around that, to find what I'm looking for. And whether she acknowledges or not, DNA doesn't lie. I always say, DNA don't lie. And this is one of my last stories. Woke up Wednesday morning, turned on my 23andMe, and there was this young lady who was like my second cousin, and she was born in 1995. And I said, my God, I'm 81 years old. I shouldn't have any second cousins who were born in 1995. I said, maybe she's a niece, but Barbara Walker. And then I looked and saw that her grandparents were from Cincinnati, my hometown. And I said, well, maybe that's something I don't know about. Well, a little thing with genetics called triangulation and working to a certain point. And so my pinpoint was, it has got to be one of my nephews. But 2 of them are already deceased. She does not look like she could be from the 2 living ones, but maybe she looks a lot like her mother. So I reached out to her, and she came back and said, my mother's white. She told me she was at a party, and she got into a drunken one-night stand. Ooh. She left the house to buy some more alcohol and couldn't find her way back to the house, so she got on the bus and went home. Now, I'm seeing some big holes in that story mother been telling the child. So I didn't let on to that. But anyway, I said, well, gee, obviously you must be my great niece. I mean, given the DNA and how close you are. So I said, tell you what, I'm gonna give you 2 names. So ask your mother if either one of those names are familiar. Now remember now, she's 26 years old, the young lady. So she threw out the 2 names to her mother, and mother bit right away. Yes, that one. As a matter of fact, his name is. I said, now you know what? That wasn't no damn one-night stand, because she was that drunk. She didn't remember his name after 26 years, just like that. But anyway, discovered that the name she mentioned, she so-called remembered for the first time in 26 years, was the name of my youngest deceased nephew. Wow. So I shared that with his brothers and sisters. She's married, 3 children, stay-at-home mom. Husband's is white. He's a mechanic, 757 jets, engines. And she's about happy as a lark. She ordered the ancestry test, I think, the same day, and got it back already and sent it in. I'm told by her that according to the mother, she never told him that she was pregnant. And of course, 26 years ago, they were living across the river in Kentucky. And she explains that both her grandparents were virulent racists. And there was no way mother was going to have that black child and bring it into her family. So she was adopted out right from the womb. So I'm not looking that I'm going to get any more surprises like that. I'm not at this late stage, but you know, you never know. You know, and you know, one of my nieces says, Uncle Lewis, I don't believe that. And I told her, I said, look, baby, I don't know what you know about DNA. DNA does not lie, but people do. And her DNA match is close enough to me that they could have just put niece down there. You know.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
This is Crystal. So
yeah. Hey, Crystal.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right.
All right. So when it comes to those white ancestors that pop up on those DNA analysis, those kits, what do you think is the best approach? I don't have my picture up, and they do ask for my family tree, and I'm just now getting on some of those sites. So what's your recommendation after I've had, a couple of maybe communications through messaging and not a phone call yet? I mean, do you just flat out just ask? What do you do?
I usually will reach out and tell them if they want to make contact. Here's my, I'd rather, we can do it on the email site, I mean, on the DNA site, but I'm better and can do mostly by email on my computer. So if you don't mind. And they come back, I had one come back and say, well, do you mind if I call you? I said, no. I give them my phone number and I get a call. And we start a chat. But my thing is, if you don't reach out, then what are you looking for? I mean, I reach out because I want to see what's going on, where they're from, if there's some opportunity to find some records they have that name one of my formerly enslaved ancestors. Yeah, I mean, like this guy who's taking a wine test, and he says, "Oh, he may run into some bigoted white person." Well, I don't know how that's gonna happen if he doesn't reach out somehow. Now,
I guess my question.
Now my picture is on 23andMe and Ancestry, and Family Tree DNA. I ain't hiding nothing. You can decide whether you want to or not.
I'm more interested in getting the information, and I don't want them to be discouraged, and I just don't post my picture up everywhere. So it's more of a thing of, I want information. I don't want to be information to be hidden because they know I'm Black.
Yeah. Well, I mean, probably the information, except for what may be private, personal, you can probably research and find yourself. But it is being able to find stuff that's not digitized and online that may help you with your research or with your search. It's a let's chime in. I think it's a personal choice, one that you have to make. I have not had any bad experience of anybody saying, "Look, I don't want to chat with you. Please don't send me another message." I've had some folks who just did not respond, and
Okay,
I've had some folks. I've had some folks after 8, 9, 10 months. All of a sudden, they show up, and I said, "Who the hell is that?" And then I click on a message. I said, "Oh, I sent them a message, almost a year ago." Maybe they didn't renew their membership or whatever, but but I would reach out.
Thank you. I have another question. One more
Sure.
question. I asked it in the chat. I don't believe anyone was able to speak on it. I have a great grandfather who was killed by a white man. I'm almost 100% certain this is a lynching that took place. And I've heard the story of how his body was returned to the house when someone found him, but nobody talks about it in my family. I do have his name, and this is in the this would have to be after his marriage, which was the 1918. So my question to you, if I can't find a death certificate, I can't get any oral history, are there any other sources that maybe I might be missing out? This took place in Georgia. I don't know exactly what county.
Oh,
anything about lynchings or any information you can share, please?
Do you know who his name was? What his name was?
Yes, Sam.
Well,
Yes, I do have his name.
Well, there is the website that connects with the museum over in Montgomery.
Right.
If that was an incident of that, it may be on their site, on their rolls. But yeah, typically now I had a lynching in my family, and all it said was hung by a mob. I'll be honest, I was in the Bartow County at the old courthouse when I read the death certificate. I'm glad I didn't have an AR-15. I probably would have shot the courthouse up because I knew it was my great grandmother's brother. But all the head on there was hung by a mob, and then I was able to. I said, if it's on the death certificate, then maybe let me look for a newspaper account. And the newspaper account
did the death certificate say it was that he was hung by a mob?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So the story is that the sheriff was messing around with his wife, who was a very fair woman. And he shot him and killed him. Now, it didn't take long for them to I'm sure, to round up a group of people with a rope. Oddly enough, my great-grandmother never, ever, ever said anything, but I now know that what was happening sometimes when I would see her with this long distance look and the tears rolling down her face, I think she was thinking about her brother, and I'm sure she saw it happen.
Can I share what you just said, Louis?
Yeah.
It's called if you look up the National Museum for Peace and Justice, which is in Montgomery, Alabama.
Yeah.
With and it's really, the website is museum and memorial.eji, which I think is the Equity Justice Institute of Equality. But they have a list of all of the lynchings that they know about that have been reported. And so by having his name is the time, but they would have a record of all of those that were considered. And if they don't have his, I'm sure they'll research it to make sure they have every one of them. And if you've ever gone to Montgomery, it's a really impactful place to go. It's on a hill, and I guess the website will show you that. But they're trying to get cities where these lynchings happen to put a memorial at the place that it happened. And so they have we have two of them in Delray Beach where I am that we're working through the county government to put a memorial, a remembrance is what it's called. So you might be able to also have a remembrance for your relative at that place. So do go into the National Memorial for Peace and Justice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's exactly what my hope is once I get further information that I can do that. And
where do you live?
Where I'm from or where I live? I'm in Connecticut.
Where do you live?
But I'm from South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina. Born and raised.
All right. What about in Connecticut?
Hartford.
Oh,
what part of South Carolina, Crystal?
Columbia, raised, born in Charleston.
Oh yeah. Oh goodness, yes. And what Lewis said too about we're getting the I think it's called the International Museum of African American History that should be up in Charleston next year. Yeah, it's very, very close, but they will have records and genealogy and a whole section of that. So that's going to be our kind of epicenter too. Because I remember when I did my research, I remember the lady in Barnwell in Charleston saying, if you can find the slave ship and the plantation they went to, we can help you a little bit further. Well, I couldn't find a slave ship, but I understand that that's one of the things that the International African American Museum is in Charleston is working on. So we might be able to actually get the slave ship and therefore where we're from. In addition,
there is a database, and I didn't think about that, so I'd have to Google. There's a database at Emory here in Atlanta that I think specifically may have the names of almost all of the slave ships, where they embarked, who the captain, the pilot was.
Wow.
It's here. Madeline will know about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that down.
Yeah.
I have to say something about the whole captain thing. So I'm just gonna share this. So when I was searching for this great grandfather that was lynched, I kept coming across these white family Bibles. And the man who came from England was a sea captain. And him and all his ancestors in that family Bible are the male family members' names. And I don't know, it's just getting very challenging for me. And I don't know, I don't understand. And I just keep getting to a brick wall when it comes to my great grandfather who was lynched. And it just seems very strange, that family Bible is in the US National Archives and it has their names. None of it's like making sense to me.
Well, that's because it's they submitted it there as a historical document in archives, so accepted and put it on display.
Well, I contacted a local museum here where I live, close by, because he quote unquote established that area. And I got a response back from a librarian, and I have the slaves that he owned at his death in a will, but I was told by the librarian that they weren't registered. I'm not sure what that means.
The will wasn't registered or what?
The slaves, they had Indian slaves and African slaves, and they weren't registered. That's what she stated.
Are you saying in South Carolina? Or
no, now this goes all the way to Connecticut. This goes to Connecticut. They were the colonizer came Connecticut and Massachusetts. Yeah. This is like the 1600s.
Well, they pretty much saw them as indentured
Right.
You know,
So-
they could work out a term. Yeah. So it wasn't like the chattel slavery that we had here in the 13 contiguous southern states.
I'm just saying, I don't know if there's a correlation. I don't know.
Well, you got to remember,
Keep searching.
most of the slave ships were built in the Northeast. Most of the captains were from up that way or from Europe. You didn't have any Southerners knew that much about sailing the high seas, whaling, and stuff like that. So, and there's only been one. I think Lincoln hung one slave ship captain. That's the only one I can remember.
Yeah.
I think the book's talking about how the North was complicit in slavery, something like that. But he's the only one that we know that was ever that paid the price.
And I'll tell you something interesting too about that, with the Northeast versus the South, and what Lewis is saying is absolutely true, because all the slave ships being built in the Northeast Boston area and otherwise.
Yeah.
The first state to legalize slavery was Massachusetts. But it was kind of indentured servitude slavery kind of thing, because they used a lot of slaves to help build those slave ships.
Yeah.
Okay. Harvard University, which started in 1635, was built by slaves.
Well, the Ivy League schools, period.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is, because of the indentured cattle property of the South after the 1740, Negro Act of 1740, is where we really got this kind of brutal slavery that we know and live. So the captain that you're talking about, Crystal, maybe up there, they don't have the same kind of perspective that we're looking for in the South when we talk about slavery.
Yeah, because you got to remember.
One more question about that.
Go ahead.
Before you go forward, thank you, Bill, for explaining that. Also, the sea captain is listed as a freeman. What does that mean for those in England that were freemen? Is that a different significance over there? Just curious.
There were British. Well, you got to remember that they were free and they were sailors. There were British ships and Portuguese and French that would come into ports in Georgia. They would literally stay on the ship, being shanghaied and lifted off into slavery. But there were black sailors on many of those ships.
Right.
Who sailed in these ports.
They don't want us to know that, but that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
Can you guys list the website that you were talking about in the chat? The ones that you were talking about in Georgia? I believe it was Georgia.
Even the lynching museum?
Yes, please.
Give me that again.
Yeah. I'll look that up right now.
Okay.
I think it's called International Museum of African American History, but let me make sure of that.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go, but because when the pandemic hit up, and my immune system hasn't allowed me to do much of going hardly any place. But I'm just told everyone who's gone comes back saying that's doing what you do. That's one place you got to go.
International Museum of what? I'm sorry.
I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina. International IAAM. And it hadn't opened up yet, but it's about to be open.
Right. Now you guys know, maybe you don't know, Bill does. Slavery was officially, importation of slaves abolished for the U.S. in 1908.
18.
I'm sorry, 1808. What the hell am I going? I think the Wanderer landed on the west coast of Georgia, in 1858. And then I think the Clotilda was the last one to sail up Mobile Bay. Was that after the Civil War, Bill?
I think it was right before. 1861 hits me.
Yeah. And that was a bet,
right,
by two guys that one said he could sail to the Congo and bring a list of slaves back and slip them right up on, and he did. They have now found conclusively what they believe is the Clotilda, its remains, right, in Mobile Bay. They established a town called Africa Town, right, where Barracoon, the book was written about Cujo Lewis, who was the last of them to settle there. So lots
and the slave builders of the ship, again out of Massachusetts area, it was a bet that he could bring over some slaves without being caught. Yeah. And so that's why they went into Mobile Bay, and let them off, and then tried to sink the ship.
Yeah, set it on fire.
Put it on fire, but they have found it, and it's quite a story. Yeah, but not and I'll just add this to the history. So in 1808, when they stopped it, that's when, I don't know if you all have seen the picture, 12 Years a Slave, but that's when they started going up north and everywhere and capturing blacks and bringing them back into the South as slaves. So it became the biggest, what they call domestic slave trade. Yeah. And Birmingham, Alabama was the largest place that they would bring them down in the stern, take them down the river. They would take them down the river and they would capture them in the north with slaves and then take them down the river and sell them.
And then you had this whole process after the emancipation. I think the term was used, slavery by another name. They would just take people off the street, put them in chain gangs, send them to work on people's farms. They might grab your uncle, and you might not have seen him for a year. He was probably somewhere working on a farm without any pay or anything. So there's much history. Hey guys, I started this off. I still feel I'm still kind of weak. I mean, that sounds like it. Wondering how we're going to get through this. But I want to thank you. It's been a rollicking 2.5 hours of a lot of good exchange, and that's what I really wanted. I told Brother Monk when I wanted to do this that's what I wanted. I wanted to be an exchange with a lot of you chiming in, asking questions, and that's what we got. So thank you so much for lending a hand and helping us get through this.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Louis. Thank you. So it was a really nice meeting, and I mean, I myself learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone on the call here, they learn about more other way to find the ancestor. It doesn't matter if it's enslaved ancestor or the enslavers. So
thank you for hosting, brother. That's
Thank you.
This is a one of a kind show, guys. If you know anybody who wants to join, please let him know. So I had my first meeting last month.
I would love to.
Yeah, I had my first meeting last month, and I was glad to come back. I didn't know I was going to get hooked into being the solo host, but and I know I was going to be feeling so bad, but it worked out. It worked out well. And Bill, tell Madeline I said hello.
Right. Oh yeah. So this is a blessing just to come on. I was telling my wife off. Guess what I found out? And but we're praying for you. So you'll be okay. We're praying for you. and we'll pull you through. So thank you very much for this.
And I thank you all.
Thank you. We get the ancestor to look after you, so we all together, you know.
Oh,
right.
So you guys know that when Bill's sister and I did our DNA stories, my story was about finding my family in Africa. That I actually had a match with a family in Africa, and I traveled there for several weeks. I lived with my family. It was at Ghana, at Togo. We had a big reunion in the ancestral village at Keta. I walked on the sand beaches where my ancestors walked. Went to the slave dungeon where they were forced to stay until they were shipped out. And yesterday, one of the young sons called me just to check on Uncle Lewis. Oh, and by the way, I don't have cousins. Because of my age, I'm Uncle Lewis to my African nieces and nephews who are younger. And if our kids here could give the kind of respect that my age brought me in Africa, oh, what a wonderful place this would be. I'm just trying to get well enough to make another trip. I've already put in my will that some of my ashes are to be taken back to the ancestral village at Keta and spread in the lagoon.
Wow!
So I've made my I'll tell you, when I discovered that this woman actually was 100% African and living in Ghana, I just let me tell my niece I'll call her back. I didn't know what to do. I got a visa so damn fast you wouldn't believe it, and a plane and round trip first class plane ticket. My wife said, "How much you spending?" I said, "Doesn't matter."
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You know, she said, "You're gonna spend $3,000." I said, "I already spent it." You know,
I got to go home.
And you know, and they met me at the airport, and there was joy and cheering and laughter, and the people around us didn't know what was going on, so they were asking in English, because you won't believe it, English is the official language of Ghana, and when they told them that I was from the diaspora and that we were meeting as family, as DNA matches, but some of them, you should have seen the tears. They couldn't believe it. And you know, big old bad me, retired military officer and all that stuff, you know, I had the tears flowing too. I ain't telling no lie. And for two, I took two of my younger cousins came with me, one from Cincinnati and one from New York. And I, you know, it was like we never left each other. Like we never left each other. The younger ones talked, and there was one night when they were talking, and we got back, and she was crying, and I'll probably get emotional too. And she said, "Uncle Lewis, you know what Diana said?" She said, "You just don't know. We know that our people were taken. But she said the elders weren't touching that for a long time until they knew we were on the way. The elder male, he's a retired Army colonel, Seth. I got a hold to a secret recording that I wasn't supposed to hear, and the message was, they are coming from the diaspora. When they arrive, you will meet them. He was at the airport. Where they stay, they will not pay. Where they eat and travel, they will not pay. During their visit here, that will be done by the family. I actually have my official certificates in the family. But I had to slip and leave a couple of grand in the drawer in the room where I stayed. And I got this desperate call from Diana, wanting to know how she could return the money. And I assured her that nobody would know but the two of us. And I really had to call Bridget to calm her down, and because she was so afraid that if Seth found out that someone had actually taken money, it just not would have been good. So it was just, you know, they do things maybe the way we probably did things before we were, you know,
it's true,
taken away.
Uncle Lewis, I tell you, I look forward to that. As we get all up in ages, and then to have this come around at our age, right before we go to our heavenly home, and then we can go home. After so many years of not knowing quite where home was other than the continent. So I look forward to. I'm headed. Me and my wife are headed to Egypt in December, because we were told through my family, my Bimeleki family here, that we started in Egypt. So I decided, well, let's go start in Egypt. And after that, the Moncom and my family, I know, is going to welcome me into Cameroon. So, and you know, and so I'm looking forward to that. But it's just a great thing, and so I appreciate you sharing that with us. So Bridget's
grandfather, on number is 23andMe DNA. He had I saw his, I said, what the heck is that? 23andMe explained that he was a descendant of Ramses III. And that I think they only have the percentage of that many people descending from Ramses on 23andMe is almost zero. So, you know, I took about 20 kits with me, about 15 Ancestry and about 10 23andMe kits. The thing you have to understand is that they're not selling DNA kits in Africa. So if you happen to go from what you see on your DNA, take some tests with you. If you're coming close to where you think you were from. Because had Bridget not been traveling in Australia, she never would have gotten hold of those test kits and got them back, because she could do it in Australia, but not in Ghana. And I think if, and I implored 23andMe and Ancestry when I went to do that. They each gave me a kit each. I mean, you know, but if we ever get more and more people on the continent taking DNA tests, we're going to have more and more matches. I believe that with every fiber in my body, we get more and more folks that are taking the DNA test, we're going to have more and more matches. And you all, I love you dearly. Thank you for tuning in today, Brother Monk. As usual, thanks for hosting us. I'm looking forward to next month. But peace to you all. I hope you'll see my face again next month. And I'll let you know how my treatment is coming.
You're definitely going to be invited next week, because we actually hold it every weekend, but we just didn't have enough speaker. We kind of like push it a little bit like weeks, but we look working on things maybe, next week, and then I'll send you the invite.
Okay, Bill,
Pamela. I think he needs to be extended. Thank you so much. You are so knowledgeable. And I want to tell you, and despite everything that you're going through, your attitude is amazing. I commend you for it, because it's difficult to go through what you've gone through and what you've been through, and you still hold your head high. And I am so proud of you, and I look up to that. You're an amazing man, and I thank you so much. Thank you.
You know, I said when I started, I said, you know, I haven't taught this stuff in ages. I don't know how this is going to go, And my wife says, just be yourself.
Well, you did good. Come on back next week and do it again.
Yes, please.
We love it.
I gotta go. You guys have a wonderful rest of the
much.
weekend, and please be safe.
Thank you.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right.
for tuning in. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.